Hi, this is JJ Gonson from Cuisine on Locale. Brining is a really simple process. Basically what you're doing is you're making a bath that has a very high salinity, a very high salt content. And that salt then works its way into the muscle of the meat that you're cooking, and muscle is actually the part we eat. That's what we think of as being meat. So it works its way into the muscle and it breaks it down, and the result is actually not a saltier piece of meat so much as a more tender piece of meat. So this is a cider brine, which is nice because not only does it tenderize the meat, but it also gives it a really, really good flavor. And we're going to start today with 4 cups of apple cider. This is it's cider. It's not apple juice, but you could use apple juice for this recipe, and I've even used white grape juice before to brine things. Pretty much what I'm doing here is I'm giving it some sweetness and a little bit of flavor. Okay, I'm going to put this cider on high to boil. I actually want to bring it to a full boil. And while we're waiting for that to happen, I'm going to get some more flavors ready to go. This is whole ginger, or ginger root, as it is often called. I'm just going to cut the peel off of it, quick and dirty. Nobody's going to see it. Doesn't have to be pretty, just has to get done. I'm going to cut it into big chunks. And the reason I'm cutting it into big chunks is because when we're done with this process of brining, these are actually going to end up going away. We're not going to roast them with whatever the meat is. The bigger you make them, the easier they are to pull out. But you do have to cut them up or else you're not going to get all the flavor. I'm going to put those in there where that's starting to get hot. Cut up some more. I like a lot of ginger in my brine. I think ginger is a really great flavor that it's so easy to add. And it tastes so good. Now, to make this a brine, you need salt. So you add a lot of salt. It seems like a lot of salt, but this is a quick brine. This is a brine that I only want to leave the meat in for about maybe 4 hours before it comes out. So I'm using a very, very high ratio of salt to the liquid. I've got 4 cups of apple cider, and I'm going to use a full ½ cup of salt. And as that warms up, it's going to make the salt dissolve. It's why one of the reasons that we're heating it is actually so that the salt will dissolve. At this point, you can't actually dissolve that much salt in that little liquid. Okay, I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of apple cider. Just a little bit. Vinegar also helps to break down the muscle tissue. You could use lemon. I'm going to use lime as well in here. In the case of these limes, I actually don't mind getting a little of the extra flavor of these skins too. These are nice, clean, organic limes. I'm going to squeeze them. And then half of this lime, I'm actually going to put the whole thing in there to get a little bit of the flavor from the peel as well. It's going to add a little tiny, almost undecipherable bitterness that just kind of makes it interesting. Get all that juice in there. Give it another little stir. It's kind of like making a magic potion. It's sort of cool. It's almost gotten to a boil. This is called plum wine. Plum wine has a really nice flavor. It's kind of sweet. It's got that boozy flavor that's kind of nice with meat. But it's nice. I like it. What I want to do here is I want to put it in right before this comes to a boil, because I do want this to boil because I want to boil off the alcohol. I don't want to taste the alcohol in the brine. I just want the sweet plum flavor. So about a ½ cup of plum wine in there. Now, I've got some kind of cool spices here. This is called star anise. Star anise is really neat because it's not actually, it's actually a fruit that's cut and then dried, and it's such a tough fruit that you don't really want to eat it, but when you dry it, it makes a really nice spice. So I'm putting it in what's called a mortar and pestle and just breaking it up a little bit. Again, I'm going to drain this out, so I don't want to break it up too much, but I'm breaking it up enough that I can get the flavor out of the spice, but still it's big enough that I'm going to be able to fish it out when I don't want it in there anymore. I'm going to do the same thing with a couple more spices. This is called allspice. You might have thought that allspice was a term for all the spices mixed together. It's not. It's actually the name of this spice. It's called allspice. And I'm going to do the same thing with this. I'm just going to go just enough to break the outside. Again, this is like a pepper. Again, this is a fruit. Just enough to break the outside of the fruit so that the flavor comes out but big enough still that I'm going to be able to strain it off later. And I'm going to pour it in there. Okay, this is a nice mix of peppers. I've got a green pepper, a white pepper, a black pepper. There's a rose pepper in here. Guess what I'm going to do with it? You got it. Just a little bit. And pour it in. Okay, when this hits a very, very high rolling boil, that means that the alcohol is cooking off. Let it cook for a minute or two until you're not really getting an alcohol-y whiff off of it when you stick your nose in it, which is about now. Turn it off. And I would transfer it into another bowl at this point, just because the pan is kind of hot and it's not going to cool down as quickly if you leave it here. If you want to use this right away, you have to bring it down. You can't put meat into a hot brine. You'll cook your meat and it'll go bad. So what you have to do is take some ice cubes, and there's really not a problem with adding a little water. There's a lot of flavor in here, so you're not going to lose it. Add some ice cubes and just give them a stir. And when they stop melting, you're at room temperature. Still very hot. A lot of heat coming off of this. There we go. This should do it. What you can do with this now is either you can take it as it is with all of its chunks in it and put a piece of meat into it. When you brine, you need to submerge your meat completely, whether it's turkey or pork or chicken, whatever it is. You need to submerge the meat completely. And one of the best ways to do that is if you put your meat into like a Ziploc bag, a big Ziploc bag, and then pour the brine onto it and then squeeze out all the air, and then put the Ziploc bag in a bowl, and you can just turn it around every once in a while. You still need to rotate it every once in a while, though, just to mix up the brine and make sure that it's getting all the flavors. You can definitely put your meat in with all that stuff in there, the ginger and the lime and all those spices. But the other thing you could do is at this point, you could take this and put it in the fridge and let it sit. And in a couple of days, all those flavors are going to be pretty well melded. And at that point, you could strain it if you wanted to brine something with it. Either way, this is going to make the flavor of your turkey or your pork or whatever it is that you're brining really unique and different. And you should feel free to play with the spicing in this. I hope you enjoy it.